All right, welcome into Boston Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I am Chase Sr. Hope everybody out there is having a great week. And look, we know that the Celtics this year have been a frustrating watch. COVID issues because of that. Injury issues have caused that as well. But also, we're not sure if this roster is a seamless fit. So Jeff Goodman, college and pro basketball insider, threw out a trade idea that I find to be fascinating. How about a Jaylen Brown for Bradley Beal swap? He was talking to Bob Ryan, legendary Boston Celtics writer and Boston media guy, and he threw out this idea because he makes the argument that this Celtics roster, because of that lack of fit, needs a shakeup. My question about the Celtics right now, especially moving forward, you watch them all year, it just hasn't been pretty, it hasn't been consistent. Have they maxed out? And does the roster fit? Those are the two big questions that you have to think about when you think about this potential trade. Here's the exact details of the trade that Goodman had proposed to Bob Ryan. Bradley Beal to the Celtics for Jaylen Brown, Robert Williams, and a future first-round pick. He also threw another option out there that included Marcus Smart. So I think in both instances, both for the Celtics and for the Wizards, whether you include Robert Williams or you include Marcus Smart, both the Celtics and Wizards receive some pretty good compensation back, and I think it's a pretty even flip. So Celtics fans out there, would you make this deal as proposed by Jeff Goodman? Type T if yes, you'd pull off the trade. Type P for pass. I would certainly think about it because Bradley Beal, one of the best players in the NBA, certainly one of the best scorers. And Bradley Beal and Jayson Tatum actually both went to Chaminade High School in St. Louis. I watched Tatum when he played for Chaminade a few years ago. Dude was an absolute monster before he went to Duke. And both Tatum and Beal to this day remain really good friends. And I just think that if the Celtics flame out in the playoffs, if it's in the play-in or in the actual playoffs, if the Wizards don't reach the playoffs or they lose in the play-in or in the big dance, and these teams don't reach expectations, maybe the Wizards front office and the Celtics front office, led by Danny Ainge, come to the thought that, hey, both rosters need a shakeup. Let's pull off this deal. And for the Celtics, maybe it would be a better fit. Financially, I went through it. It could certainly work. Let's take a look at it. Bradley Beal going to be an unrestricted free agent in 2023. In the next 2 years, he's on the books for $34.5 million and $37.2 million. Jaylen Brown, on the other hand, going to be an unrestricted free agent in 2024. Over the next 3 years, he's on the books for $24.8 million, $26.5 million, and $28.5 million. The age for both of these players, doable if you want to pull off this trade. Bradley Beal, a little bit older, just turned 27. Jaylen Brown, a little bit younger at 24 years old. So I think both teams would win in that regard because they don't have to worry about these players who aren't injury prone getting older as they progress in their careers. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that Jaylen Brown and Bradley Beal are different players. While we're going to put up the stats here, let's take a look at what both guys bring to the table. Jaylen Brown, more of a defensive-oriented wing forward. Bradley Beal, more of a 2. He is a shooting guard. And as I mentioned, behind Steph Curry, might be the best bucket getter in the league. You can throw Kevin Durant in that conversation. KD more efficient than those guys. But this year, Bradley Beal might win the scoring title. He's averaging almost 31 points per game. Jaylen Brown, on the other hand, a career high of nearly 25 points per game. Field goal percentages, identical. Three-point percentages, Jaylen Brown, actually better, but there's less volume there as compared to Bradley Beal. So again, important to note, different players, but because Bradley Beal plays the 2, Jaylen Brown plays the same position as Jayson Tatum, we've seen that Brown and Tatum at times can clash, and I think that's why Boston's offense at times in crunch time has been somewhat clunky. So let me know who you think the better player is. Type BB if you think it's Bradley Beal. Type JB if you think it's Jaylen Brown. Bradley Beal, certainly the better scorer. Better defender, Jaylen Brown. But when you look at both of these players, maybe Bradley Beal fits more seamlessly into what Brad Stevens wants to do when you look at the current roster construction that Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens are trotting out there. My opinion on this deal, let's wait and see on it. Let's see how the Celtics do. They've been crushed by injuries. They've been crushed by COVID to the likes of no other team across the NBA. Let's see what happens once they get into the playoffs. If they lose in the play-in tournament, I think the Celtics will have a serious conversation as to how to move forward as an organization. On the Wizards' hand, Russell Westbrook, Bradley Beal, they've been electrifying as a twosome. If they get into the playoffs, there's potential that they can make some noise. And as of right now, Bradley Beal hasn't demanded a trade, so let's wait and see. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Newsbreak. The beauty of the Newsbreak app, all of the local news that's going on in your community shows up on one single feed from all of your local news sources. It's an app and a resource that I use every single day to stay up to date with everything else happening in the world outside of sports and in the sports world. Hey, I recommend you download the Newsbreak app because it is awesome if you want to be well-rounded and well-versed on all of the current event happenings across the world. So go to chatsports.com/CelticsNB, download the Newsbreak app on your iPhone or Android because on one single feed you get your local news, weather, and crime, politics, pop culture, and food, as well as your sports content. And speaking of sports content, if you're sitting at home one day or you're out on the road and you are fiending Celtics Today content, because how couldn't you? I mean, look at me. I'm on your screen right now. The Celtics page is live on the Newsbreak app right now, so you can catch Celtics Today on Newsbreak. Go to chatsports.com/CelticsNB, search Celtics Today, and give us a follow. Injury issues continue to hit the Boston Celtics hard. That's been a theme throughout the 2020-2021 season, and the Celtics experienced a major scare during Sunday's loss to the Portland Trail Blazers. Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum collided. Both of their legs got tangled up late in the fourth quarter with only a few seconds left, and it looked scary there for a minute. But luckily for Jaylen Brown and the Boston Celtics, there is optimism that Jaylen Brown, who suffered the brunt of that tangle up because Tatum was fine, looks to have avoided serious injury. And the Celtics haven't said anything about his status other than the fact that they believe that he is not seriously injured. And it's a shame because he was really playing well over the last several games. Here are his numbers in the last 7 prior to him getting hurt. Almost 37 minutes a night, almost 28 points per, nearly 8 rebounds. The defense, hey, it's always there with Jaylen Brown because he's one of the best two-way wings across the NBA. So when you saw him get hurt, I'm sure you had a sigh of relief when you saw and figured out, hey, it looks as though Jaylen Brown is going to be okay. So let me hit you with the sigh of relief meter. If it was a big sigh of relief, type B. If it was a big sigh of relief, type B. Yeah, all of Celtics fans out there typing BBB because they're happy that Jaylen Brown did not suffer a serious injury. Want to get to Evan Fournier. We've touched on him a lot on Celtics Today because, man, since getting traded to the Celtics from the Orlando Magic, hasn't been able to play and suit up in a Boston uniform a lot because he was crushed by the coronavirus, missed 9 games after testing positive, and he since then has been very outspoken about his battle with COVID. Now, he returned on April 23rd, and he has been back for a few games. He started the last 4, but nobody really realized to the lengths that he was suffering when it comes to the coronavirus, which is also crazy because Jayson Tatum is still taking an inhaler before games. This is what Evan Fournier had to say about his own struggles. The thing is, I feel like I have a concussion. Right now, it's actually doing a little bit better, but at first the bright lights were bothering my eyes. My vision was blurry and everything was going too fast for me. My depth perception is really bad right now, but I saw a specialist and she gave me some exercises, and hopefully I can get better. Now, you've seen as Evan Fournier has gotten reacclimated, he's starting to play better and better, but still doesn't have his legs under him. In his last 4 games, 27 minutes, only averaging 7 points per game, and you can tell he's a little bit weak coming off of COVID. Shooting 34% from the floor, the 3-point percentage, not great, but here is a sign of hope. He returned to form on Sunday, albeit a loss against the Blazers. Played 34 minutes. That's a great sign because it says his stamina is back up. Scored 21 points, and he was really efficient. Maybe one of the best Celtics players on the floor. 8 of 10 from the field and 5 of 7 from deep. That is a great sign for the Celtics with only 7 games left in the regular season because he is an important piece, whether he's going to be a starter for this team or come off the bench. That then leads me to pose this question. Evan Fournier started the last 4. He's also come off the bench for this team. Do you think he's better suited as a starter for the Celtics? If so, type S. If you think he's better suited as a bench player, type B. I'm going to go B. Check up on the Eastern Conference standings to see where the Celtics are right now. 76ers and Nets, 1 and 2 spots in the Eastern Conference, followed by the Bucks. The red-hot New York Knicks, who have won 11 out of 12, but enter a really tough stretch coming up. Miami Heat in at 5th place at 35 and 30. And there you see the Celtics, 7th place at 34 and 31. Not good that if the season were to end today, they would be in the play-in tournament. So where do you think Boston is going to end up in the Eastern Conference standings? Comment below with a number as far as the seed that you think the Celtics will end up at in the East. As always, appreciate all of you for rocking with us here on Celtics Today. If you made it this far, maybe you're like, hey, Celtics Today, that Chase Senior cat, this is good stuff. So subscribe to Boston Celtics Today by hitting that big red button down below or go to youtube.com/CelticsTV for the best Celtics coverage here on YouTube.